Hello. Welcome everybody. Let's hope that this time this works. I do apologize for the slight delay in going live today, or what actually happened is that we went live, then YouTube Googled up on us, and then we didn't go live and freaked out and had to do it all again. So that's why you've got a last-minute email in your inbox, which directs you to the right feed, hopefully. So that's what's happening here. You can join us live on Google Plus, which the Google Hangout apps is actually giving you a little link on your YouTube video if you are watching this. We believe what might happen is that Google might restrict the amount of people that can join us. So we're just going to broadcast on YouTube and respond to your questions as you type them in the YouTube comments. And I'm going to get going now so that we can make up for some lost time. My slides are all about blogging for you guys as artists. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about how a blog is useful to artists and how it's a useful idea, and give you some ideas of what to write about and what to consider when you're writing, when you are posting those photos, posting those videos, whatever you've got, you can put it out there, but there are ways of making it relevant to people and thoughts that help you sort of, position yourselves. So let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen with you guys, like she said. Bing, bang, bong. Okay. Right. So I'm our first presenter today. My name is Kirsten. I have a website and I have a blog. I've been blogging for about 2 years at fluentlanguage.co.uk. This is going to stop being the wrong way around in a minute. And what I do on an everyday kind of blogging week is these days I post just the one post between 1 and 2. I tend to have about 5,000 to 6,000 people visit my website in a month, which is pretty much good going. And there are specific things, like I said, that you can sort of bear in mind if you're an artist. So today we'll talk about standing out online, first of all, and the way that your inner world and you as somebody who creates things and writes things matches up with the blogging world, which is, you can regard very cynically. So you could think about this as content marketing, which a lot of people do, and blogging has sort of become this kind of SEO strategy, really. Last thing I need is my cat climbing up on me, but that's fine. So it's become this sort of content strategy thing, and the thing that you can really take from that and learn from that is the aspects of discipline and consistency. So what you're doing is the same as with your website, the same as with your presence on perhaps Twitter or Facebook, is you're going pro, more or less, right? You're really sharing what you do on a regular basis, and you having something there that people can rely on. And that's an important thing for me about blogging as well. And the first rule really that I would give you is think of this as a long-term project. Think of this as something you don't start at being perfect. Think of this as something that doesn't start out being like awesome straight away. That's not the point. The point is that you have something and you start producing messages, you start talking to people, you start talking about your inner world, right? So at the moment we've got this one end where it's sort of blogging and very external facing marketing efforts, really. And on the other side we've got you as the artist. The reason you can employ this, the reason I want you guys to employ this, is because it's free. It's almost entirely free advertising, free web traffic, and as you'll see later as well, it's somewhere that you can send people, and that's really, really important. So that is your personality, your brand. You're not on Etsy, you're not on Amazon at that moment, that you are on your website, and the only thing that people are noticing is you. And that's really important if you want people to sort of start connecting with you and becoming more than your just one-time buyers and, oh yeah, I've got this like picture and I think the lady was called Jane or something. You want people to start engaging with who you are, so that they start recommending you, they start telling people the stories of, oh yeah, this artist, she lives in Portland and she has 7 cats or something like that. You know, you're letting people into your world because they start sharing. Yeah, they start sharing what you're sharing, and that's a beautiful thing, and it's free advertising. Okay, so looking at a little bit more at the benefits and the ways that I think if you have a little bit of a website or you've got any kind of audience, this is what I believe you should leverage your blog for. So if you've got this audience, what you get from it is, first of all, feedback, of course, right? So you post what what you care about, you post your ideas, you can get an awful lot of ideas on the sales front from people by putting something out there and saying, well, I'm thinking about doing this. Would anybody be interested in this? Would anybody buy this? Would anybody, you know, are you guys up for me doing this? And that is a great thing, that it's opening up that dialogue with people online, and they can consume your content in their own time, at their own pace, and that's not something they get in a conversation. That's not something you get in an exhibition, because you don't get to be there all the time. So it's a space, especially I think for somebody who is creative, for experiments, right? If you're interested in perhaps exploring something and thinking, oh, I wonder if this is gonna work. I wonder if anybody even wants to see this. This is the way to kind of put a little bit out there, or just say, oh, look, here is the digital sketch that I did, or here is a scan of what I've been doing, or here is the guitar track and I'm considering writing some lyrics over it or something like that, or that's the next thing that I'm doing. And then if people come back and say, oh my God, that's awesome, then you know you've got something strong kind of going on there. The third point is repeat customers, and that's exactly this idea of somebody sharing their story and sharing your story. So they have connected with you, they know more about you than they could ever get from just your piece of art. And they're going to start, if they are the kind of person you connect with, which is ultimately the kind of person that's going to be your salesperson, brand ambassador kind of person, they're going to come back and they're going to buy more stuff, because they know you're great and they know what you're creating stuff for. So instead of just buying into the one thing that you made once, they start buying into all of the things that you make, because you've become more than just one product, which is really nice. So that's the kind of idea of brand engagement, really. And your brand can be a scary word, but realistically it's just you and people like you. Okay, the other point as well is, if you're an artist, and you're probably already doing this, you are going to be reading blogs, checking out what other people are up to, and once you start sharing what you're up to, they're going to do that with you. So a lot of the support and a lot of the community that you're in is going to come from the people that you're with, the people that consume your content, and the people that want to see what you're up to. So they might not be buying your stuff right there and then, although a lot of them do support you, but they might be sharing it. They might be wanting to collaborate. They might be interested in interviewing you. Or if they keep commenting, you might learn something from them. So you start entering this community through blogging, really, through sharing what you care about and sharing what is out in your world, and finding some kindred spirits. And then the final point that I have really is, if you've got this audience, if you've got this website and this place, you get somewhere to send people just the once. You send people back to the same web address all the time, where they will always see what is new. You're not sending people to your Twitter, you're not sending people to your Facebook or your Tumblr or whatever it is. you're sending people to the core, the heart of where you are creating, because that's where ultimately they learn about you, and that's where you can then make your pitch as well and say, well, also I'm doing this thing, or also I'm considering doing a painting course, would you be interested? And you basically just get much more space and much more visual and audio visual materials to play with on a blog than you do on Twitter. On Twitter you can't really post anything much, and I think Vine is dead, to be honest. Okay, the core question, right? So because a lot of people say to me, oh, what should I write about? I think you should write about anything that you want to write about. Like literally anything, maybe not periods, but most of the things are fair game. But ask yourself the question, where does this fit into my reader's life? What makes, what is it that they care about, right? So you personally care about your self-expression, your world. How am I going to get somebody to value this? What are people going to think? Oh my God, etc. What the person who reads your post cares about is their world, what they like. They only really care about themselves, basically. So what you want to do is tell a story in a way that connects what you're producing to what they are wanting to hear and what they are wanting to identify themselves with. So for example, if your reader is like, oh, I'm a very educated and sophisticated person, I'm really smart, and that's why I like Picasso, what you can post about is, oh, I am an artist influenced by Picasso, very strongly influenced, because Picasso, I believe, is for the kind of buyer who is, or the kind of art consumer who is educated and smart. Or if somebody says, if your customer is somebody who values quality, they're going to connect with the type of stuff that you do, that is where you talk about your craftsmanship, you talk about the kind of tools that you use, you talk about, I use quality, because one of the things that really makes an artist stand out from other artists and a lot of hobby people is this idea of basically being a pro, right? You're not somebody just messing around in a potting shed, you're somebody who is really putting a lot into this. So the one question I really want anybody to think about before they put anything out there on the blog is, if you can talk about, hey, this week I've got I have a cartoon, and look, it's being featured in the local paper. That's very interesting, but that's about you. So whereas if you write about that cartoon and you talk about how it fits into your reader's world, and for example you talk about, hey, when we think about it this way, it makes us laugh about, it makes us see the funny side in things, and that's going to appeal to people who are looking for that kindred spirit, or who are looking for that feeling or memory that they connect with. Or you might say, oh, I've done a silk scarf because I'm so in my 90s period. That might appeal to people who are in their own 90s period. So it's basically all about how can people think that you're a really good friend of theirs. In terms of practical concerns, Pearl is kind of nodding at me. I should rush through this, Kirsten. Right. At the heart of them, all posts by artists, in my eyes, are visual and, more importantly, just generally sensual. Now, on the internet, there are certain senses that we can't really you can't deliver, right? You can't make it smelly, thankfully, maybe. You can't make it tactile, really. You can have them hear what you're producing. You can have them see what you are producing. So those are your two main senses. And especially the visual is very, very, very important on the internet. So rather than just writing a big block of text, you have to make your text visually attractive. You can write 100 words and count that as a blog article if it's about a beautiful photo, because your visual content is like your best friend on the internet. There are ultimately 4 ways that you can make a blog or create a blog, which are the kind of standard blog, which is sharing your thoughts and working roughly in writing. There is vlogging, which is basically making a lot of videos, like making a video diary. And there's nothing to say that you can't film yourself, put those videos on YouTube, and then embed them on your website. So again, the idea is bring them back to your website, because that's where your about page is, and that's where you ultimately want people to come. You can have a podcast, and again, podcasts don't have to just live on iTunes, but if you're a person who is very good at talking and you can't spell to save your life and you want to save time, just record yourself talking. That's cool. Or if you're especially again, if you're working visually, use photos. Use photos, describe them, always describe them, but you can get away with a 100-word post. That's fine if the photos are strong and they tell the story. Next point is focus on your product, because ultimately you're doing this in order to survive financially, probably. So focus on what it is that you're working on and simplify the sales. By that I mean make it very easy for people to buy, right? You can say, oh, if you want to commission me, just send me a message, and don't be worried about sending that message 1,000 times, because blog readers will come and go and spend like 1.5 minutes on your website, and in those 1.5 minutes you want them to get the message that, hey, this is something that you can buy. So also show it in a beautiful environment, etc. But simplify the sales. So if you, for example, you can easily sell on Etsy or something like that, but then just put a link in it and direct people there, and put that link again and again. So just make it really easy for people to buy. Consistency, which is the point I made before about the discipline of blogging, and a thing that you can almost take like a corporate approach to it. Consistency is your friend. And have that one place to send people, because you think of it like on your business card, how much space have you got? How visually appealing is your business card? If you don't, if your business card was full of your, I'm this on Facebook, I'm this on Twitter, I'm this on Google+, I'm this on LinkedIn, I am this on some other social network that 6 people might be on, it's good to have your presence there, but really you want to have one hub and then send people out from there. Right, so those are a few practical concerns. Here's a little summary of what we were talking about earlier. So people care about themselves. That's what they want to read. They want to read something that reminds them about their own situations, their aspirations. So have pictures of your beautiful, like your friend bought one of your paintings and she's got an amazing living room. Show it, because people might want an amazing living room. You care about, where do you want your art to be enjoyed? How do you want your art to be enjoyed? What is your worldview? What do you like? What you like is not just usually what you like. If you like, say, you could write a whole post about peanut butter and jam sandwiches. No, peanut butter and jelly, it's called in America. You could write a whole post about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and as long as you make it relevant to your reader and say, oh, hey, you know, we are the peanut butter jelly gang, they're going to feel a connection to you, and that's what we care about here. Okay, so just a little reminder of who I am. I do have a full-on, you know, a lot more time, a bigger course going live. I'd love to tell you a little bit about it. And basically what we cover in that course is we go much more into this discipline aspect of where to find the time to blog. We talk about how you actually get found online, so there's a certain touching on SEO and sharing your posts. And one of the core messages of fresh content for me is I wanted to help people get over this, what am I going to write about? And how do I write about this? And oh, I'll just write about lipstick. Don't do that. So instead we work through an awful load of templates so that it becomes like a what's the word that I'm looking for? An effortless, you basically don't have to think, process to write blog articles, because you just kind of go in and you go, okay, I'll come at this from this angle. Pearl says instinctive. That is the word we're looking for here. Instinctive is good. So if you are interested in that, then do get in touch with me. We'll send you a follow-up email, and you'll know where to go. And I'll, we'll do you a really good deal as well, Pearl and I, because we're nice, aren't we? Oh, going the other way around. All right, I'm just going to check the YouTube feed. Oops. To make sure we've got no questions that I'm ignoring. So am I right in thinking that there are currently no questions, no queries? Let's see, Pearl, have you got any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I think I would have to watch this again to capture all the ideas that you are sharing so efficiently.
Okay. Yes, it's a bit rich. It's a bit rich, but it's literally, I feel like this is scraping the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
There is so much to be shared, but there is so much to be considered. In what we're doing. Right, okay, so I shall hand over to you, Lady Pearl.
Great. Okay, I'm going to do my screen share. We spent some time early this morning preparing, or in the US early this morning.
Yeah, in the UK, just like afternoon time.
Yes.
No one's really bothered, it's cool. Like, we have all had a good night's sleep. You Americans, you might not have had a good night's sleep, but, we're good. So just as a reminder, while Pearl is getting her screen up, if you do have any questions for us, anything to do with blogging, anything to do with your About page, what you're going to do is post them in the YouTube feed or post them here in Google, Google Hangout, sorry. And I'll keep an eye on it. Right,
okay.
Do you want to go for it, Pearl?
Yes. Now, when I talk, I'm supposed to take over the screen?
Oh my God, I've just found all the questions.
All right, well,
we will get back to these
questions.
Well, I will answer the questions in writing. I do apologize. Or actually, I will go through them a little bit later. I do apologize that there's a little bit of a what do I call it, Bill?
Lag.
Yes, exactly. So we will come to your questions at the end, but I will hand over to Pearl, who's going to tell you everything about how to make an awesome About page.
And yet, I'm starting on the wrong slide. All right, not going to start on the wrong slide. All right, this is Pearl Klein, and I'm going to talk about your About page, or as I like to say, the dreaded wonderful About page. The About page is, for some reason, a sticking place for a lot of people, and maybe it's just that I love talking about myself, and I don't have trouble with that. So I want to bring you along so you don't have trouble talking about yourself. So my topic, as I set it out, was what exactly are you about? Connecting with your ideal, that is paying audience, by telling your story. And I spent time in the last couple of years where it seemed like everybody was talking about the value of story and the importance of story. It was coming up in a directing class. It was coming up at the World Domination Summit, and everywhere in between. And the reason that we tell stories is very simply that stories are a form that we all connect with, and people start telling stories at a very early age. So in your blog about your art, your story is the story about three things: you, your art, and the person who can buy it from you. So when you talk about yourself, or as I say, about who, you're talking about two people. You're talking about yourself and your audience. And what I tell my copywriting clients is that the About page is the one place where you use the pronoun I more than you use the pronoun you. Everywhere else in your website, with exception of your blog itself, but still keep this in mind, you're talking about the reader and their experience and what benefit they will get from paying attention to you, from coming to where you do the thing that you do and listening. We're all self-centered. As someone I know says, we are all the star of our own badly made movie. We are the main character or the protagonist of our own life. So we talk about ourselves, but when someone comes to our website, they want to hear about themselves. They want to hear themselves reflected. So the reason that you talk about yourself when you're introducing yourself is to make a connection with your reader. It's very interesting to me to be sharing this with you internationally using my voice and looking at words on the screen, because the words on the screen don't have the same qualities as the human voice. And yet we talk about voice in writing. It's very important to create a voice in writing that represents who you are and gives your reader something to connect with in the wired world. There is often a lot of debate about whether we are more connected or more disconnected. But the truth is that we can create a portrait of ourselves that allows other people to know something that they can care about. But it is this sort of infinite mirror. They read about us because they're thinking about themselves, and it helps them care about themselves. So how do you talk about yourself? Well, a lot of people are afraid of bragging and sounding conceited. And the first thing you need to know is that you have to put that aside. That for most of us, we could stand to pump ourselves up just a little bit more. If we are wonderful, if we are doing wonderful things, then we need to let people know that for their benefit so that they can connect with the wonderfulness that they need in their lives that we can provide. So how we do that is we share things that, again, create a bridge, a connection, and a way of communicating with our audience. But really specifically how? Tell specific stories, share details, be clear, and be as real and personal as you feel is relevant to the work that you're doing. So then what do you say about yourself? As an artist, people are very interested in hearing about how you create what you create. What is your process? Why do you do what you do? What do you believe about art? What is your mission in creating art, if you have a mission? And if you don't have a mission, you might want to sit down and write out a mission statement about your art and see how that is going to inform your ability to communicate and connect with your audience. Then there's the question, what do you actually do? What happens when you have an inspiration or an idea or a vision? What happens when you pick up your paintbrush or your clay or your measuring cup or your camera or your pen? What is the experience for you? Because there are a lot of people out there who don't have the experience of feeling connected to their creativity, of feeling as creative as I know everyone is. We're also interested in how you learn to be good at what you do. And this is very different from saying, I went to such and such an art school, because that doesn't tell me anything about how you learned. But you could say that while you were at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, your studio time was the most valuable time you spent because you were working your butt off in a room full of other artists who were working their butts off and learning and thinking about the shared experience of what it means to create, which is very different from studying in a class or reading a book. You might talk about what steps you took. What led you from point A to point B? Really, most of us don't go from point A to point B. We skip around a lot in the alphabet, and there may be A1s, A2s, etc. But the steps that you set out to follow and how those maybe differed from the steps you ended up following. That's fascinating to a potential reader and art buyer. This is your audience. And what experiences have you had that have informed how you've decided who you are as an artist? One artist I know lost all their art in a fire, and that was a very important experience. In fact, a lot of experience about art is about losing art and having a sort of a reset for who you are and how you identify yourself. I myself had a bunch of notebooks stolen when I was traveling, and I am still convinced that somewhere in that stuff that I wrote is some of the best thinking I ever did, and I'll never recreate that. But luckily, I don't have to get stuck there. It is a part of my story. So another thing that you can write about, and going back to the theme of stories, comes from what you might hear referred to sometimes as the Pixar pitch. Improvisation, acting improvisation, talks about this form of storytelling, but really it is about telling a story and how you structure a story. And for a lot of what I talk about when I'm telling people ideas about writing, I'm asking you to create a scaffolding or use a scaffolding that you then put aside when you're done. So if every about page started resembling this outline, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't be good. It would be boring and repetitive. But everyone can start at the same place in telling stories. And this is a basic story structure. Once upon a time, every day, but one day, because of that, until finally, and ever since then. So once upon a time, there was an artist named Picasso. He learned how to paint classically, and he could do highly representative art. Every day he painted pictures of things that people recognized. But one day he decided that he was going to put an eyeball on a cheekbone and see how that worked. Because of that, he started getting a lot of attention, much of it critical. Because of that, people started talking about him all the time, until finally he grew so well known that he could put a squiggle on a page and sign his name and earn tons of money. And ever since then, Picasso has been a name that is really, there's a word I'm missing now, Kirsten. I want to say simultaneous with, but synonymous with great art and development, and maybe even commercialized art at a certain point. But this is the structure that you can use to tell a story, and it has all these basic elements about the old world and the change and where that has led. So keep this in mind as you're trying to talk about yourself and your art. Another artist, speaking of someone who lost art, had her storage facility liquidated, and all the paintings that she made were gone. So once upon a time there was a painter. Every day she created canvases, but one day all the art that she had made for years was sold out from under her. Because of that, she stopped painting. Because she stopped painting, she started using photography, until finally she found her photographic voice, and ever since then she's been making these amazing abstract art constructions that she photographs and then destroys the construction. And that is interesting. People want to read about that. I think I need a sip of water. So in trying to narrow down 3 valuable tips that I can give you to use today, I wrote about 75 tips. These may be basic for some of you, but I still find when I go to other people's websites that I'm seeing mistakes all over the place, and everybody could use my services. But the first thing I want to say is make sure you're using the first person. Writing about yourself as if you are not yourself is not only creating a boundary between yourself and your reader, but it creates a boundary for between yourself and your perception of yourself. So if you say, when she was 10 years old, she moved across the country. There is a disconnect and some distance that you're creating between the speaker and the character you're speaking of. But if I say, when I was 10 years old, I moved across the country, then I'm reconnecting with the emotions and the history of myself, and I'm sharing it from a more real and authentic place. And the more that I can share of that, the closer I'm going to get to connecting with my audience. Cut the dead weight. There's a lot of ways to think about this, but I often think of, if you hire somebody to work for you and they are not working, then you want to either reshape what they do, you can retrain them, or you might want to get rid of them. And your language is the same. Language has to be functioning to do something, and you may not always be aware of what it is exactly. But it has to be pulling its weight and doing its job, or it goes. Be ruthless, because your reader will be ruthless. They do not have the time to read through a lot of hemming and hawing and extra words and repetition that is redundant and goes on and on and on and on and on. So anything that you don't know why it's there, reconsider it. Anything that says something that's said better somewhere else, take it out. Anything that you wrote down that you no longer remember what it means to you, that should go right away. The third really important thing is to use concrete details, coming back to the idea of stories. We experience the world through our senses. We experience the world, I'm not just in this room, but I'm sitting in a chair. My body has a specific weight and temperature. I have sensations of what I'm touching. I have sensations of pain because my legs are crossed too tightly. I'm going to adjust. I have taste and smell and sight sensations. If I want to recreate my experience in another person's mind, I need to share some of those sensations. So saying, suddenly I knew that I was a painter, that doesn't give me a sense of what the story is and what the details are. But as I picked up the brush and felt the rough texture of the canvas under the oil as it slid over, I realized that I wanted to have that feeling every moment of the day. There's a concrete story that other people can visualize in their mind and identify with. I get very frustrated when I read somebody saying, suddenly everything changed and now I'm a very different person, and from this is where I want to start talking to you about. And I say, well, what does that suddenly? What was the change? What happened? What story aren't you telling me? Because if you're not going to tell the story, then I don't want to hear the suddenly everything changed. It's just teasing. Oh, look, I've come to the end of my presentation. But I did want to show you a little bit about me and also about how I approach writing about myself in terms of how I'm talking about other people. So I'm not telling you anything when I talk about myself that isn't going to reach out and make a connection to my ideal audience. I can say that I'm a famous actor and director, but really, who cares? That just makes me famous, and really, I'm not actually that famous, although I'm in IMDb, or about to be. Anyway, my acting and directing experience gives me insight into ways of expressing truth about character and the details you need to share with your audience to make yourself come alive on the page. I've started integrating parts of my life into my story about my work, because really the reason that I do everything I do is because of the history that leads up to today. As a licensed master of the fine art of poetry, I can bring rich imagery and wordplay to your copy. Notice that I'm not telling you where I went to school. If you want to know where I went to school, you can ask, but it doesn't really add anything to your understanding of how I can help you. I work best in collaboration which is why I think of myself as a writing coach and not a copywriter, and work face-to-face in real time, writing with you, not for you. That's also what has brought me to work with Kirsten, this a joy that we both have in creating ideas, sharing ideas, creating content, that is to say, writing stuff, and sharing our voice with you was something that seemed like it would be a really fun way to spend some time. So if you want to know more about the work that I do, you can go to filthyrichlanguage.com. And I'm going to come back to Kirsten and let go of this so that you can see faces and we can both answer questions that you have.
We have found the questions. I do apologize. I am a bit thick sometimes. So, but let's stop being thick. Let's be smart. And what I can do is I can read out the questions and then we can both answer them together. And I can also, this is something I had not known, click the question and then it tells you which question is being answered right now, for the benefit of anyone who has asked a question. So, first question comes from Shauna, and it's entirely practical, which is when you answer questions, your answer disappears in the question and answer app. Is there a way to see the whole conversation? Shauna, I'm sorry I made some questions disappear. I will get back to those. And that was entirely me learning how to use this system. So I believe that we don't answer the questions in writing. There's no way to answer them in writing. We're just going to answer them live on the feed here, and then you'll be able to rewind the YouTube video and get back to them anytime you want. There's a few really, really awesome comments as well, so I'm just going to press done on this. Comments from, we have David Vaughan, okay, who has given us 2 comments, and one of the comments was concerning the way that he approaches writing a blog. I thought that was really interesting. So David says, I've begun writing my blogs, but instead of posting the entire blog to read, I make a vlog, so a video, from the blog, and then I post that as the latest blog post with more of a summary as the written part, but the meat of the content is the video log, the vlog. And that, I think, is a really, really good approach, an interesting approach, for 3 reasons, really. Number one is, before you're making a video, that way you're scripting yourself, and that can be very, very useful. I would be interested, David, in knowing whether you address this as a writer and sort of say, well, what I have written is actually already my art, and you're basically performing what you are doing, which could be one way of going about it. So you could almost consider this a performance. Say if you're a poet, and you record yourself on video talking about what you're doing, but it's less of a meta thing, it's more the actual performance. I think that would be really good. Or the way I've often done videos, because I'm a language blogger, I do very interesting things like explaining grammar. I just make a few little bullet points so that I don't get completely lost in the video, and it helps me talk. But at the same time, I don't then go completely unscripted, and I can be a little bit spontaneous, keep it more fluid, keep it more lively, hopefully. And it makes, I don't know, I am this person who talks like this, so then it's nice because people recognize what I talk like. But the other great thing that you're doing there as well is you are still including a written summary, and that written summary is a lot easier for any search engine to understand. So you're still making your content in various different apps that pull in the blogs, pull in the RSS feed of your blog, or if you want to tweet about it, it's really easy for people to scan then, so they can connect to it very quickly. But the other aspect of it is that you're making yourself more SEO friendly. So, I mean, what can I say? Well done. It's awesome. Do you have a view on video and performance, Pearl? Have you tried it?
Yes. I would suggest that if you're interested in starting video blogging, that starting with a story outline, the once upon a time story about any event that you've got, that's a great way to structure it if you don't know how to start. And it can be, you can be talking about a particular creation that you have made. Once upon a time, I wanted to do a photograph like this, and these are the steps I followed. So that's a way to structure and script it. I do also believe more and more in a tighter script, not necessarily memorized, but talking points or bullet points. Because if you're like me, you can ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and never end a sentence. But if I noticed in today's, what do we call this? A broadcast? It really is a broadcast.
A hangout on air is what Google calls it.
Hangout on air. That having things written down to refer back to kept me on target. But I love the idea of having the script and using that as a summary.
Okay, well, I shall move on to one of the other questions, which was from Rebecca Lindley. Hello, Rebecca. And she, oh yeah, we can still throw it up there. She says, can you recommend some successful art blogs which we should follow by example? Now, I do want to highlight 2 blogs myself, and then I'll pass it over to Pearl, who's probably going to completely overwhelm everybody, because I think you know the dudes. I can't undersell you. Okay, one of the blogs, I'm just going to screen share for a second, because this is my dear friend Ruth. Hang on a minute. Has this little website called Blue Eggs and Tea, and what she does is she draws pictures of birds, and then puts them out on Etsy. And she's an illustrator. She actually has a full-time job as well. And I think Ruth also has some background in writing, but I think the thing that she does really well, and it really impresses me, again, I'm not as into birds as she is. I think that can be safely said. There are some posts I don't really connect with, but as a whole, as a holistic image of who she is, and she's my friend who has moved away as well, so I like keeping in touch with her this way too, and as a way of talking about how what she cares about maybe influences her art, but she doesn't like completely ram it down your throat. She talks about it a little bit, or she says, oh, I'm trying this new thing, but she also talks about these topics. So she has observations of a 30-something, which is just, like little things about simple pleasures, simple things in life, and all of her art and her writing then becomes about finding the joyful things in life, finding happy things in life. And I really like the way that she has managed to tie it all together. And also, it's quite pretty. It's a pretty website. The other page that we have got, there is no way that we can not tell you about that, is the Abundant Artist. I'm going to try and see if I can. Is it The Abundant Artist? Yes, it is.
Is it?
Which is.
Yes, The Abundant Artist.
A much more practical approach from a guy called Corey Huff, and he's a very good business kind of business person. It's less of an artist's blog rather than a blog for artists, but it's got a lot of useful stuff in it as well. So I would recommend that you follow that to kind of get ideas for your specific niche. And I personally actually also follow Copyber, because they're quite good, and HubSpot, which are both sort of much more marketing focused, but they have good ideas and they have things that you can take or leave. And one other place that I definitely want to send you is Instagram. So if you can find artists that you like, and there is a beautiful community, and Ruth, for example, is very good at recommending other artists. the ones that use Instagram in a clever way, I really love those. So Pearl, what you got?
Let's see. First I have to click the right buttons. Okay, well, this is start screen share. This is KarenHyams.com, and this is the photographer I was talking about who makes these constructions out of materials that she then photographs. And as part of her process, it's 10 o'clock in Seattle. There goes the grandfather clock.
Oh, we're doing well for time.
Yes. She creates the constructions, she photographs them, and then she throws out the construction and is left with the beautiful photograph. And she is spending a lot of time developing her blog these days, so I think it's really worth paying attention to. I also got her in advance of this talk to send me her ideas of blog topics. So she's generating a lot of that stuff. This next one I'm going to show you is, let's see, striving to get to the right place. An artist and coach I know who works on creativity, Brittany Falkner. She's here in Seattle, and I've worked with her, and she's got a delightful studio space and presence, and she is one of those business-minded artists that I adore knowing, because I think that we all need to be business-minded. And just for fun, not just for fun, fun is really important. If you haven't been to Hyperbole and a Half, you really must see Hyperbole and a Half, which is writing and cartooning as a blog form. And the author, Ali Brosh, just put out a book, not but recently enough that people got for Christmas gifts. And it's funny as hell, and her art itself is an important form of expression for her, but it's not high art. It's just one of the ways that she gets her thoughts out there in the world. So those are three that I enjoy. More questions, Kirsten?
Awesome. Yeah, well, we have more questions. Just a little side point, another technical note is that Kim was saying, Kim Reed, hello Kim, by the way, Kim was saying that the screenshots are blurred for her. I believe if you want to get clearer screenshots, etc., well, either you can Google for all the people that we've mentioned, that's quite straightforward, or what you can do is go to the YouTube video, because the YouTube video, it doesn't do the blurring thing, so you can go back and have another check through that, so that should be fine. And I hope it's happening for everybody. Now, one of the things that David asked as well is that he says, I think sometimes about pages should be more about the ideal customer you are speaking to and less about me. What do you think about this approach? And he's given us his website as an example. Nice plug there, David. Nice. So I'm just going to go there, and since you've done that, I'm going to read it out. No messing with us.
Yeah.
Right. So this is I hope it's not too long. So this is an about page. This talks about. It says. It's essentially kind of what a lot of people might consider sales copy in a way, which is when you talk about, okay, here is your problem. So it says, here's the skinny, straight, and simple. Most business owners are working on the wrong things. We all started our business with a passion for something bigger, etc. So it talks about, well, here's a problem. We all have a problem. Damn. And then what it says further on in the about page is, well, you know, you're still passionate about what you do, but do you not also want time with your family, with your friends? You want to travel, you want to work less, enjoy life more, etc. So I am this guy who says you can have it all, and I'm going to show you how. And if you want to know more, get in touch with me. By the way, David, your contact form's not working, so that doesn't really help you there. So you need to sort that out. Do apologize. But
Well,
what it does do is it sort of comes down to the bottom, and then it says, well, about David, and then he talks more about, since college, I have worked for brands, I've worked with brands, I've made people more successful. So it talks a little bit more again about what you do now. But I will actually, genuinely, my spontaneous reaction to that is, okay, why are you so good at this? Why are you, like, why are you this dude that can help me with this? So it goes into a story of oh no, that's cool. But he says I'm not an artist. You are an artist. Everyone's an artist. I believe. Well, we're not. We're artists and not artists at the same time. I'm a linguist. But one of the things that you talk about there is, hey, this is what I can do for you. But it still makes me go, like, it. I'm so glad that at the bottom of there, at least, it says a little bit about who you are, but it doesn't say why you are this guy that you are. Does that make sense? Pearl, do you feel the same way?
Well, I know that there is debate about how much the About page is about you and about how much is about your customer. My belief is that the person goes to the About page. If they've clicked on the About page, they've already seen something they've liked. They haven't shut you down and run away screaming because, for instance, you have a video that plays when you open the window, which I hope people will stop doing someday. But that they want to get a sense, why should they trust you? Why should they pay attention to you personally? What is it about you that they can believe in? And so I think it's great that you've got that, here are the things that you have, but you provide proof. Your life, if you have these things, David, if you've created this life for yourself, then your story proves and demonstrates that it is possible for a human being. It's not just an ideal. It also shows where you may be, a flawed human being and not a superhuman, which is something I always want to know. And I don't need to know about every instance of, running into a public bathroom and hiding and crying because of some sort of personal difficulty. But if that happens to you and it indicates a moment of growth or turnaround or something that we can learn from, we could say, wow, people as amazing as Pearl and Kirsten also cry in the restroom. That I can be amazing and cry sometimes too. I don't have to not be amazing because I do sometimes cry.
I wonder if we have a masculine and feminine perspective here at work too, because this is something I often notice with language bloggers. You laugh. I honestly believe in this, where it's the world of language blogging tends to be, I'm a polyglot, I know 20 languages, I'm so awesome, here's my technique, you can be as cool as me. Mm-hmm. That's what the guys do. And the girls that I have seen blogging, they don't do that. We don't do that. Mm-hmm. And we are much more... again, we look for that vulnerability more. So maybe that is an interesting consideration about your customer. If what kind of customer do you want? Do you want a customer who is looking for, has the high aspirations and is looking for perfect, who's going to make me as perfect dude? Or are you looking for a customer who's like wanting to connect with you on a different level and kind of going, okay, we're going to have a partnership going here. We're going to, we're going to get something done because this is a guy who cares about one thing.
I'd really like to see both. I'd especially like to see women saying, I have this awesome technique that you're really going to enjoy the hell out of, and I can have this awesome technique and still have vulnerability, but I'm making money combining my vulnerability and my awesome technique in a way that you can learn from. But I think to me, if there's a non-negotiable part of the About You page, it really does have to be a place where I can see how my experience might intersect with the experience of the person I'm reading about. So that I might have, I learned about, I met Kirsten in person, but I would want to get a sense of reading about her that that's the same person, so that I know that she's sharing, her distinctive abilities in writing with the rest of the world to show them how they're going to benefit by connecting with her. So that's that.
Yeah,
that's
it's that authenticity thing, isn't it? It's the be you. And because, the you that you are is quite awesome. Two things about your about page, perhaps as well, would be I want to see a photo on there. I always want to see a photo of what that person looks like. And
Yes.
and just one remark that I personally do when I go to any company page or any small company, something like perhaps Airbnb or something like that, I still go to their About Us page, and I don't want to read on that About Us page, what can you guys do for me? Because I know at that point what they can do for me. It's I want to know the story of Airbnb. I want to know who are these guys, what do they care about, and sometimes can I get a job there when I'm having a bad day. So
well, it's not necessarily what they can do for you, but how their experience informs what they are doing.
That's a very good way of putting it, exactly. So about pages are what 70% about you, maybe. I don't know. Don't put a rule on it. Don't put a rule on it. Right. Final question is, and we have. I'm going to connect to. We've got Jack. Jack, if you're there, hello. Who says finding the time to be disciplined is really hard. Which, no, fair enough. That is true. Finding the time to be disciplined in blogging is really hard because you're going to think, I can drop this, it doesn't make me money. It doesn't, you don't get paid for the blog posts that you write unless you want to write freelance. That's a different thing. But you as an artist are not going to get paid for the blog posts that you write, but you're going to grow this audience, and in the long run, it's worthwhile. It really is because, for a million reasons, SEO, community, making repeat customers, making people come back and becoming like an international super artist. And what Itsuko says is, I think related to this, is Itsuko says, could you, Kirsten and Pearl, share your editorial calendars? I'm trying to establish one so I can write and post regularly. Now, I have a confession. I don't work with an editorial calendar at the moment. But I have done it. Last year I worked with an editorial calendar, so I can share my template with you. That's not a problem at all, and I'm going to include a link in the follow-up email that you get. So make sure you read your follow-up email, and I'll put a link in there to a template I'm sharing on Google Docs. It's not a problem. So you can just copy it for yourself and start working with that one. It helps you manage guest posters and stuff. The reason I didn't go with it anymore was that for me it became a third place for taking notes, and I set up a system where instead of doing that, I started just taking the notes for my blog posts within the blogging platform that I use, which is Squarespace. So what I have, instead of a blogging calendar, editorial calendar, because I am so in the habit of posting regularly, I don't go a week without posting. I just don't. It's really difficult not to. But for planning ahead, editorial calendars are great, and it's one of the worksheets that we have in Fresh Content. That's a big part of Fresh Content, is to get that structure and discipline for you. What I have now in Squarespace is basically about 10 half-written posts, and what I have in my life is Mondays, and Mondays are my blogging days. So you don't need an editorial calendar once you've got a routine of it, once you know what works for you, but it takes a while to set it up, and I think they are extremely useful. So I'll share mine with you, yes, definitely. Do you have a calendar, Pearl?
No, but
we're not that organized, are we? We're just crazy ladies.
That's right. But honestly, I was blogging regularly for a short period of time, and I haven't been keeping up. But I still have it on my weekly calendar, the time of the week that I am committed to blogging. So I don't know what that committed means at this point. Mentally, it's a time that I think about it. But yes, I'm not a linear, organized person, which is one reason that I collaborate so well, because it makes me get things done.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, but what we both do, you see, is we've both got this kind of appointment with ourselves kind of thing, and then at least you've put some time aside. So you've got to put some time aside to do it, and if in that time you can't like hammer out 15 blog posts, who cares? You can just post a photo or post something that you care about.
I will give a tip. I worked with a blogger who was quiet for a long period of time, and then said finally she was coming out and restarting, and she wrote a post about the restart and about all the things that she had been doing in the direction that she wanted to go, and it was sort of a declaration of intention. And I said to her, if you take this whole post and you put your cursor and hit return for every separate concept or idea or topic, you may have a year of posts right in there. So that you say, lately I've been working on this, and it's informed my thinking in that way, and so I'm moving into this future. Then you separate those out, so you have this, that, and future, and there's 3 blog posts right there. So you take a statement of intention and break it out into the pieces, and then each one of those pieces becomes its own topic. That's the way that I would approach it.
Yes. And pro tip, definitely, just break it all down. Break it all down. Big topics are not. You can do the 2,000, 5,000 word blog post, and they get shared more and they get more engagement. Statistics have shown. Professor Kirsten says, but they're going to mess with your consistency, so you don't necessarily need to do that. But yes, editorial calendar. Right, I shall move on swiftly to the final question. I hope final question is from Joy. Hello, Joy. Do you have any blogging platform recommendations? I am madly in love with Squarespace. I love Squarespace. It's you've probably, if you've ever listened to any podcast ever, they sponsor everything seemingly. That they're an all-in-one platform, so they let you build your website. And if you go to fluentlanguage.co.uk, that's a website that's built on Squarespace. And my fiance is a developer, and everybody thinks he did my website, and he didn't. Just for the record, I did it myself. So it's easy to use. It's got a shop with it. It's got a blog with it. It lets you podcast. It's quite idiot-proof. It's not free. So unlike WordPress, it's not free, but it includes hosting and a domain as well. So Squarespace, love it. But Pearl's going to come and say WordPress now, I think.
Well, for quite a while, I was using Weebly, which is free, and it had 1 or 2 features that I really liked. But I have shifted over to a new WordPress theme called Divi, D-I-V-I. And I haven't really explored fully the blogging platform there. I've written some blog posts there, but now I need to just learn. It's something I'm learning as I'm using it in another project called Northwest Finishing School. And so we're building websites using Divi, and I have more to learn. But I mean, as with a lot of things, to me, you stumble around. I've looked at Squarespace and wasn't turned on by it. You stumble around, you take recommendations, and eventually you're going to find the thing that you fall in love with. I wish I had a better answer, but I think if I told you one platform that you absolutely had to use, and you went there and you hated it, then you wouldn't trust me, and you shouldn't for that. And so I don't have one thing that I recommend. I have, like a lot of tools, the tool that you will use is the one that you want to hook up with.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, over time, you kind of develop different things. So one thing that I use, which isn't a blogging platform, but is a formatting script code. It's called Markdown, and it allows you to write your blog posts in basically like in text edit or in Notepad. So you have a very kind of clean screen and you don't write necessarily in the blogging program. Quite often, I find that really helpful because it stops distraction. So if I need to, get to the bottom of one or finish one, I write them in Markdown, and that's the thing. Like in my blogging platform, Squarespace uses them, WordPress uses them. You can then come in and use that. But again, in Fresh Content, we kind of go into the various different practical bits a little bit more, and I think I haven't got time today. Really to go into it in great
Yes,
detail.
we do need to wrap things up, but I put in the YouTube Hangout, I asked you if we have a special offer, and I know there were some people who were coming live today. We have a special offer for your attendees today. So to get that offer, if you email Kirsten, because I'm letting her be the program manager, the project manager for us, with the subject line, I love art blogging, we will make absolute certain that you get that email. And if you signed up in advance, you will also get that email. So you won't be able to miss it. But if you're listening
basically,
to this,
if you got a really panicky email from me at about 5 p.m. or 9 a.m., which told you to go to a completely different wedding web address than what we originally said, weddings on the mind, then we have your email address. But if you didn't get a panicky email from me, then please send me an email so that we can send you the editorial template. That would be really good, and just some final notes, and you'll know where to find us as well. And that was it for the questions.
Great. Well, congratulations, Kirsten. We did it. And thank you all for coming and joining us as we stumbled through this amazing technological journey and hopefully made some contacts with artists that we want to know more about. So thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one thing that I would really like to do is actually, once you get your follow-up email, if you reply to me and tell me where your different blogs are, I'll do a little directory for us as well, and post it on my website and let you know where to find it. But yeah, so thank you guys for joining us. I can't believe you watched this and you're still with us, so this is awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm going to say goodbye from me. Yes, you got to say goodbye. Yep, that's right. It's what they do on University Challenge in the UK, which is my favorite show. I'll make her love it. Right, okay. And that's it. Goodbye.
Bye.